I am 20 years old, sitting in my childhood bedroom that has become a strange hybrid of sanctuary and observation post, listening through the thin walls to yet another argument between my parents and my 27-year-old sister, the same argument that has been playing on a loop for nearly 8 years now, the same words exchanged with different inflections and varying degrees of desperation, the same promises made and broken, the same frustration building and building until someone snaps. And the cycle begins again, and I find myself caught in the middle of this exhausting family dynamic, not quite a child but not quite an adult either, old enough to understand the gravity of the situation but young enough to feel powerless to change it, old enough to have my own opinions but young enough to question whether I have any right to voice them, old enough to see the toll this is taking on my parents but young enough to remember when things were different, when my sister was just my sister and not a source of constant tension and worry. And I am writing this not because I expect a magic solution but because I need to process what I am seeing, need to articulate the frustration that has been building in my chest like pressure in a steam cooker, need to understand whether my feelings are justified or whether I am being too harsh on someone who might be struggling in ways I cannot see, and I must begin by laying out the facts as I know them, because the facts are the foundation upon which any understanding must be built, and the facts are these. My sister graduated from high school in 2017, 8 years ago, and in all that time she has never held a job, never volunteered, never done anything that could be considered productive or income generating. She does not have a driver's license, she does not contribute to the household in any meaningful way. She spends nearly every waking hour playing video games, connected through Discord to a community of online friends who exist in the digital realm and seem to have little connection to the physical world, and I know this because I have observed it, day after day, week after week, year after year, the same routine repeating itself with the mind-numbing regularity of a clock. She wakes up late, she plays games, she eats the food my parents provide, she plays more games, she sleeps, she repeats, and the only interruption to this pattern is the arguments. The periodic explosions of frustration when my parents can no longer contain their anger and disappointment, when they ask her why she is not working, why she has no ambition, why she is content to live this way, and she always has an answer, always has a reason, always says she knows, she is looking, she will figure it out, but the looking never happens, the figuring out never materializes, the promises evaporate into the ether like so many other words spoken in the heat of conflict, and I think about how my parents are not asking for much. They are not demanding that she pay rent or contribute to bills, they are not threatening to kick her out or cut her off, they are simply asking her to do something, anything, to build some kind of life for herself, to have something on her resume, to have some experience of the working world, to have some money of her own, to have some independence, to have some sense of purpose beyond the next gaming session, and I think about how reasonable that request is, how any parent would want their adult child to have those things, how it is not about money but about meaning, not about contribution but about capability, not about obligation but about opportunity, and I think about how my sister seems unable or unwilling to understand this, how she retreats into her games and her online friends and her comfortable cocoon of avoidance, how she seems content to let the world pass her by while she pursues digital achievements that have no bearing on her actual life, and I think about the toll this is taking on my parents, particularly my father, who has worked his entire life to provide for his family, who spent decades in the concrete business, driving semi-trucks for hours on end, doing physical labor that broke down his body, who worked so hard that he now has health problems that prevent him from continuing, who has given everything he has to make sure his children had food and shelter and opportunity. And now he is watching his eldest daughter throw all of that away, watching her refuse to take the opportunities he sacrificed so much to provide, watching her squander the potential that he worked so hard to nurture, and I cannot imagine how that feels, cannot fathom the depth of the disappointment and frustration and heartbreak that must accompany watching your child refuse to launch, refuse to grow up, refuse to take the reins of her own life, and I think about how my mother has had to go back to work after 20 years out of the workforce, how she has had to navigate the humiliating experience of applying for jobs with a 20-year gap on her resume, how she has had to swallow her pride and take a position that is likely beneath her qualifications because she needs to help support the household now that my father cannot work, and I think about how unfair that is, how wrong it is that my sister sits in her room playing games while my mother goes out to work, how unjust it is that my parents are struggling to keep food on the table while my sister contributes nothing, how bizarre it is that I am 20 years old and I have been working since I was 17. That I have been paying my parents what I can to help them get by, that I have contributed almost $7,080 since November of 2025 because I see the struggle and I want to help, because I was raised to understand that family takes care of family, that we all pitch in, that we all do our part, and I think about how my sister does not know any of this, does not know how much I have given, does not know how much my parents are struggling, because she is so insulated from reality that she might as well be living in a different world. She does not see the worry lines on my father's face, does not hear the stress in my mother's voice, does not notice the extra careful budgeting, the cutting back, the sacrifices that are being made to keep the household afloat, and I think about how she probably does not even see the struggle because she has never had to look, has never had to worry about where her next meal comes from or whether the lights will stay on or whether there will be money for necessities, because my parents have been so generous, so enabling, so unwilling to let her fail that they have inadvertently created a situation where she has no incentive to change, where she can continue to exist in this suspended animation of perpetual adolescence because there are no consequences, no urgency, no reason to do anything differently. And I think about how my parents have been on her case since 2017, have been arguing with her and pleading with her and threatening her and cajoling her for 8 long years, and nothing has changed, nothing has worked, nothing has broken through the wall of resistance she has built around herself. And I think about how the arguments have gotten worse over the past year, how the tension in the household has become almost unbearable, how every conversation seems to carry the potential to explode into conflict, how the atmosphere is thick with unspoken resentments and accumulated frustrations. And I think about how I am tired, so tired of living like this, tired of the arguments, tired of the tension, tired of watching my parents suffer, tired of feeling like there is nothing I can do to fix this. And I think about how my mother and I have started talking about the possibility of buying my sister a plane ticket to go live with her boyfriend in another state, thinking that perhaps a change of scenery, a move, a fresh start might be what she needs to finally grow up, to finally take responsibility for her own life, to finally understand that the world does not owe her a living. And I think about how my father is hesitant about this idea, thinks it is the easy way out, thinks it is passing the problem on to someone else rather than dealing with it directly. But I also see him wavering, see him starting to consider the possibility because he is just as exhausted as the rest of us, because he is starting to realize that nothing he has tried has worked, because he is starting to accept that perhaps my sister needs to hit rock bottom before she will change. And I think about how I do not know what the right answer is, do not know whether sending her away would help or hurt, do not know whether she would thrive in a new environment or simply continue the same pattern somewhere else, do not know whether she is capable of change or whether she is too comfortable in her dysfunction to ever truly want to become different. And I think about how I have always looked up to my father, have always wanted to be like him, have always admired his work ethic and his dedication and his willingness to sacrifice for his family. And I think about how I have used my sister as a cautionary tale, have told myself that I never want to end up like her, have been so determined to avoid her path that I have taken the opposite one, have worked hard and saved money and tried to be responsible and helpful. And I think about how I am proud of myself for that. Proud that I have broken the pattern, proud that I am not another burden on my parents, but I am also angry that my sister is making this so much harder than it needs to be, angry that she is oblivious to the strain she is causing, angry that she seems not to care. And I think about how I should probably feel more compassion for her, should probably consider that there might be something deeper going on, mental health issues or depression or anxiety that is making it impossible for her to function. And I do consider that, I do wonder whether there is more to the story than simple laziness, whether she is struggling in ways that are invisible to the outside world, whether her gaming is not a cause but a symptom, a way of coping with something she cannot face. And I think about how I have suggested therapy, have suggested that she talk to someone, have suggested that there are resources available to help her figure out what is holding her back, but she dismisses these suggestions, says she is fine, says she does not need help, says she will handle it herself, and she never does. The same pattern, the same avoidance, the same refusal to engage with the reality of her situation. And I think about how I am tired of making excuses for her, tired of trying to understand when she gives me nothing to understand, tired of being the responsible one while she gets to be the child. And I think about how I am only 20, how I should be enjoying my youth, how I should be focused on my own life and my own goals. But instead I am here, tangled up in this family drama, worrying about my parents and my sister and the future of our family. And I think about how I have a job lined up in August, a good job that will pay better and allow me to help my parents even more. And I'm excited about that, excited about the opportunity to relieve some of the financial pressure. But I'm also resentful that my sister is not contributing, resentful that she gets to coast through life while I am grinding away. Resentful that my parents are so worried about her when I am the one who is actually trying, and I know that is not fair, know that my parents love both of us equally, know that their worry for her is not a reflection of their appreciation for me, but I cannot help how I feel, cannot help the bitterness that creeps in when I think about the disparity between our lives, cannot help the frustration that builds when I see her playing games while my mother works and my father struggles and I count every penny to help out. And I think about how I need advice, need perspective, need someone to tell me whether I am being too harsh or not harsh enough, whether there is something I can do that I have not thought of, whether there is any hope for my sister to change. And I think about how I have come to Reddit, to this anonymous space, because I cannot talk to my friends about this, cannot share this family shame with the people in my life, cannot admit that my sister is 27 and has never worked, because I feel embarrassed for her and embarrassed for myself and embarrassed for my entire family. And I think about how I need to know whether other families have dealt with this, whether other siblings have faced this situation, whether there is a way out that does not involve cutting someone off or giving up on them. And I think about how I love my sister, I really do. I love her even when I am angry at her, even when I resent her, even when I want to shake her and scream at her to wake up, because she is my sister, she is part of me, she was my best friend when we were younger, we shared a room and secrets and dreams, we laughed together and cried together and I thought we would always be close, but now there is a chasm between us, a chasm of her making, a chasm that grows wider with every year she refuses to change, and I think about how I do not want to lose her, do not want to become so distant that we are strangers. But I do not know how to bridge the gap. Do not know how to reach her when she seems so unreachable, and I think about how my parents are getting older, how they will not be able to support her forever, how one day they will be gone and she will be left with nothing and no one, how she will have to face the world without a safety net, and I am terrified of that day, terrified that she will crash and burn, terrified that I will be the one left to pick up the pieces. And I think about how I cannot be her parent, cannot be responsible for her life, cannot carry the weight of her choices, but I also cannot abandon her, cannot turn my back, cannot pretend I do not care, and I think about how I am caught in this impossible position, wanting to help but not knowing how, wanting to push but not wanting to break, wanting to be supportive but not wanting to enable, and I think about how the answer probably lies in boundaries, in setting limits and sticking to them, in letting her face the consequences of her choices rather than cushioning her from them. But I do not know how to do that, do not know whether I have the strength to watch her fail, do not know whether my parents have the strength either. Because they have been protecting her for so long that it has become second nature, and I think about how my mother's idea of buying a plane ticket might be a good one, might be the push my sister needs, might be the wake-up call that forces her to see that the world is real and she has to live in it, but I also worry that she would just move in with her boyfriend and continue the same pattern, that he would support her the way my parents have, that nothing would change except the location, and I think about how my father is right to be cautious, right to think that sending her away might just be avoiding the problem rather than solving it, but I also think that sometimes avoidance is the only option, that sometimes you have to let people go and hope they find their way, that sometimes the best thing you can do is step back and let someone figure it out on their own, even if it means watching them struggle, and I think about how I do not know what to do not know what is right, do not know whether there is even a right answer in a situation like this, and I think about how I have been holding all of this in for so long, how I have been putting on a brave face and pretending everything is fine, how I have been the strong one, the reliable one, the one who does not cause problems, and I am tired, so tired of being that person, tired of carrying this weight, tired of feeling like I'm the only one who cares, and I think about how I need to talk to someone, need to share this burden, need to let it out before it eats me alive, and so I am writing this, pouring out my heart to strangers on the internet because I do not know where else to turn, because my friends would not understand, because my family is too close to the situation to offer objective advice, because I need someone to tell me that I am not crazy, that my frustration is valid, that my feelings are justified, and I think about how I am going to talk to my parents, I'm going to have a real conversation about this, I'm going to tell them how I feel and ask them what they want to do, I'm going to suggest that we all sit down with my sister and have a family meeting, not an argument but a conversation, a chance for everyone to say what they need to say, a chance to lay all the cards on the table, and I think about how that might not work, how my sister might just shut down like she always does, how she might make promises she does not keep, how she might say all the right things and do none of them, but I have to try, have to do something, because doing nothing is not an option, because the status quo is unsustainable, because something has to give, and I think about how I am scared of what will happen, scared of the potential fallout, scared that this will be the thing that tears my family apart, but I am more scared of letting things continue the way they are, of watching my parents age under the weight of this stress, of seeing my sister waste her life away in a virtual world that does not love her back, and I think about how I need to have hope, need to believe that things can change, need to trust that my sister has the capacity to grow and transform and become the person she was always meant to be, and I think about how I do not know whether I believe that, whether I have any faith left, whether I can keep hoping when hope seems so futile, and I think about how I have to find a way to keep going, to keep fighting for my family, to keep believing that there is a light at the end of this tunnel, because if I lose hope, if I give up, then what is left? What is the point? And I think about how I am only 20, how I have my whole life ahead of me, how I cannot let this situation define me or consume me, how I have to find a way to live my own life even as I try to help my sister, and I think about how that means setting boundaries for myself, means not taking on more than I can handle, means recognizing that I cannot save someone who does not want to be saved, and I think about how I need to accept that, need to make peace with the fact that my sister's choices are her own, that I cannot control her, that I can only control my own reactions and decisions, and I think about how that is the hardest lesson of all, the lesson that we cannot save people from themselves, the lesson that love does not always conquer all, the lesson that sometimes the best we can do is let go and hope for the best, and I think about how I am not there yet, how I'm still in the middle of this struggle, still fighting for my family, still hoping for a miracle, but I'm starting to understand, starting to see that I have to find a balance between caring and codependency, between helping and enabling, between loving and letting go, and I think about how that balance is not easy, not clear-cut, not something I can achieve overnight, but I have to keep trying, have to keep working at it, have to keep believing that it is possible, and I think about how I will get through this, my family will get through this, one way or another, because we have to, because there is no other choice, because life goes on and we go with it, and I think about how that is the truth I must hold on to, the truth I must carry with me, the truth I must live by, and I'm going to live by it, I'm going to hold on to it, I'm going to carry it with me into the conversations and the arguments and the difficult decisions, and I'm going to be okay, I'm going to find my way. I'm going to trust that everything will work out in the end, and I think about how that is everything, how that is enough, how that is me.